Hi, welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. Today we are wrapping up the topic of growing in our recovery. Recovery can be messy. Everything is connected, whether you're faith-based or just trying to figure out how can I be better today? How can I feel better today? How can I go beyond just the mediocre? And today we have a returning guest. Close friend, I just no stranger to the podcast. Thank you again, Rick, for joining us. Thank you for coming and sharing your insight.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to be on these podcasts with you and having these conversations.
I think the one thing I've learned about podcasts is that it's not so much what we say at the moment; it's just continuing the dialogue. The idea of we want to be better today. Sometimes I work with clients. Things are overwhelming. I say, don't worry about all that. Worry about being better today. So, disclaimer, if you are in crisis, please seek appropriate professional help immediately. The crisis hotline USA is 1-800-273-8255. I do believe they're going to change it to 988, so it's easier to remember this summer, but we'll just wait until that actually pushes through. So I always say this, Rick. People say it better than I do. Helen Keller said it this way: although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming of it. What comes to mind when you hear this quote, Rick?
Oh, Robert, that is a powerful statement in and of itself. But when I think of the person who said it, Helen Keller, it just brings to mind all the adversity that she had to overcome to be able to say something so powerful and so meaningful. She lost, as you know, her sight and her hearing at a very young age. But that didn't stop her from being the person that God intended her to be. And she grew up to become an author and an advocate for people with disabilities. And that's just amazing that she didn't let that stop her. And also, when I think about people like Helen Keller who overcame so much, I think of this other gentleman from Australia. I don't know if you heard of him. His name is Nick Vujicic.
Yes, I sounds familiar. Can you please
share? He's this amazing guy from Australia, and he was born with no limbs. So can you imagine not having any arms or any legs to grab things or to move around as you and I do on a daily basis? But that didn't stop him from becoming the man that God intended him to be. And he was able to get married. He was able to have children. He's able to swim in the swimming pool. He's able to travel the world and to give seminars and encourage people around the world to be the person that God intended them to be. So when I hear people like that, when I hear quotes like this and I hear people like that are so motivating, it brings to mind to me that we all have a choice. We can decide to dwell on the negative things that are happening, or we can choose to turn a negative into a positive.
It's one thing I always hear is I don't feel heard. It's a lot of times when it comes to the support groups or whatever group setting. And Helen Keller, when I listened to his quote, she was limited to communicate, but it didn't stop her to communicate to the world. And it's amazing. We have our mouths, we can see, we can hear, a lot of us, yet we don't take the time to communicate well.
Isn't that something? so true.
There's so much uncertainty sometimes, and there's a lot of things that kind of tell us what to buy, what to do to better our lives. But sometimes the bar is set too low. So low in our lives. We're like, well, this is just the way. I remember and it's not a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but you're only as old as you feel. The idea, a lot of times the oldness is more of a mindset per se. Like, obviously, intangibly, we get older, but I feel a lot of times we give away the power that we have of making that choice. You mentioned choice. Alice Walker, I want to throw this in there, not to really, just for people watching.
Sure.
Amazing quote. It says, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any.
Ooh, very deep.
Very deep. So what has helped you? Now going back to you, Rick, what has helped you through this uncertainty? I'm talking about more currently, and what throughout your life? What have you seen?
Well, when you talk about uncertainty, Robert, I just, uncertainty in life is always going to be with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the ebb and flow of the waves that come to the seashore. Sometimes the waves bring good things in, and sometimes the bad things come in along with it, So we cannot escape the realities of life. But I think it's just how we react to it, how we choose to overcome those things that come our way. So sometimes I laugh when you talk about the bar is set low, and I watch like these TV commercials, and
Yeah.
and they say, well, if you get the sleep number bed and you set it on this number, your life is going to improve exponentially.
No.
or if you buy this like luxury car, you're going to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed with the uncertainty in my life is that it's not the things that I acquire that's going to give me happiness. It's the intangible things,
Yeah.
like nurturing those relationships and making them long lasting, finding peace, the peace that passes all understanding, and also to find joy just in living, just pure and simple, just enjoying life every day to the fullest.
Yeah, just staying present. I remember a lot of times we make things a lot more complicated, and a lot of times with Revive Ministries we talk about hope, but the idea of hope only exists with a degree of uncertainty. If we know what's going to happen all the time, will be no need for hope. We'll
That's
just
right.
know things, and for me, I feel as humans, it's very human to recognize our humility of how much we don't have control over. But what have you seen? You mentioned, what have you seen work? Let us go there. Where have you seen worked, and what has not worked in this regard? With people you work with yourself, through your life. People are right now. It's easy for us sometimes to say the words. But when you're in the thick of it, when it's so close to you, the elephant, you can't even see the elephant. You're just so close to it, you can't even describe what it is. So what has helped you? I know. Go ahead first, and then I'll tell you what I feel.
Oh, that's a great question, Robert. I think that just to think of the word recovery to me, that has such a significant impact when you just hear that word. And I have worked in the healthcare industry and oncology specifically for over 30 years. So I'm going to come to you from that perspective.
Okay.
So when I am in the hospital setting and I hear someone's going to go to the emergency room, I want to ask you, Pete, what is it that you think of when you hear someone's going to the emergency room?
Baker Act. Tell you the truth. So for me, that's my field. So like right now, I'm thinking more of like crisis. I'm talking
crisis.
about
Okay, very good. So that's exactly what I thought of. I thought of crisis. Someone's in imminent danger that they have to go and they need intervention. So then, if we think about someone that's going to the OR, which is the operating room, that means that things have heightened to the next level, that they actually need surgery to stabilize them. Okay. So then if I take it to the next level, which would be ICU, or stands for intensive care unit, then things have become very serious to the point that this person's life is in critical condition and they may or may not make it. Okay, so these are kind of like three different stages that I see all the time in the hospital. But when you throw in the word recovery, all of a sudden, the whole atmosphere changes, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you feel like the sun starts shining again. And all of a sudden, you feel like there's a ray of hope, because when you think about the word recovery, when I looked it up in the dictionary, it means that restoring one's health back to normal. So you think like, wow, this person is on their way to becoming healthy again, or to be stable again, and that they're not going to potentially lose their life. So it's very uplifting just to hear the word recovery. So if we tell ourselves that we're on the road to recovery, we're setting the stage for success.
Yeah.
We're telling ourselves, hey, things are getting better now. I'm out of the ICU. I'm out of the emergency room. I'm out of the operating room. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. And I feel that that progression, that
Yeah,
that recovery journey is it allows you that growth, that
that's right.
idea that like I said in the beginning, sometimes in my field it doesn't, resources are not there, you don't know what to do, but I'm there listening to the person and just being better today, whatever that looks like. I'm gonna
That's
get
right.
up today. I'm gonna talk to my friend today. I'm gonna
That's
go
right.
out for a walk today. And for me, it sounds so small, and some people are like, well, I do that anyway. I
Right.
feel for me, it's more the mindset that I have to work with, the insight.
Hmm.
That's my when I see healing, I see insight. When I see
Hmm.
clients or people I'm working with, they recognize that they can recover, or
That's
they
right.
recognize they can have a hobby, they can actually enjoy life, they don't have to have a crisis situation
That's
every
right.
day.
You know,
And
I agree with you 100%, Robert, because
mm,
people are so hard on themselves, and they
yeah,
want to see progress by leaps and bounds from one
mm,
day to the next.
mm,
But it's just about those little baby steps,
yeah,
and just being happy for 3 hours,
yes,
and then being happy for half a day,
yeah.
and then being happy for the whole day. And before you know it, you're changing the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way
Mm.
that you act towards others. So it's all connected.
And I like the idea of goal. When you have recovery in mind, you know that it takes time to get there.
That's
And the
right.
wonderful thing about that is that there's another day.
That's right.
You know what I mean? For like, I mentioned in exhaustion, for Viktor Frankl, but what he saw with those prisoners with him in the concentration camp was the ones that did well was they thought there was another day. That was it.
Amen.
That
Wow.
was it. That
That's
was it.
something.
Like for me, hope and recovery is thinking that there's another day. And when you get further in your recovery, you're like, I want to make the day better. How can I make the days now better? And that's when you start, I would say, and it's so unique to the individual. It's wonderful to see. I want to ask you, as we continue on this topic,
Yes.
would you mind sharing with those listening a little bit about yourself? I know some have listened to your previous podcast with me. And why is it important to consider our overall health and invest in our health today? A lot
Yes.
of a lot of people are like, well, I'm old. I've done. I don't need to do. I've done my thing. I had a good run. You hear that a lot. I had a good run. Why invest in your health today, Rick?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm so glad. And I'm so glad that you asked, because for those of you who are not aware, this May will be my 10-year anniversary cancer free. So I'm a survivor, and I take pride in that.
Mm,
And on this health journey, my health has become my number one priority, because I realized that without my health, I cannot live the life that God intended me to live. Right?
mm,
I cannot live life to the fullest if I'm not at my true potential. If you feel down, or if you feel weak or sick or sad, you're not going to feel like doing anything, going to work, hanging out with friends, or just having a positive outlook. So I think about the way God created our bodies, right? With all
mm,
these intricate details, like our blood vessels and the nerve endings and our nerve impulses from the brain to the body that helps us to pick up something or to move, right? Or to move an
mm,
object. And then I think about um, how he enabled us to have senses, right? Our sense of hearing, our sense of touch, our sense of feeling, our ability to feel emotion and to
mm,
feel love. And I think
mm,
that's what's so important to me on my health journey, was that despite what was happening to me physically, it affected me mentally,
mm.
spiritually, and emotionally,
Yeah.
that I was able to see my whole self in a different light, right? I saw
Mm,
myself as a whole holistic being, that
mm,
one area affects another. So
mm,
why am I going to limit myself to just the physical when I have
mm.
all these other dimensions of
Yeah.
myself, right? So it's
Mm,
so important to grow. And one thing I've learned is how to recognize, to be in tune with my body.
mm,
And when I recognize that I'm being overwhelmed,
mm,
or that I'm in a stressful situation,
mm,
I've learned to just stop
mm,
and assess and just kind of take a step back
mm,
and just regroup.
Yeah.
And before I would be hesitant to do that, because I felt like I had to be in the moment, and I had to confront this person, or I had to make a decision right away. And no one's forcing you to do that, you know. So yeah, isn't that cool? Like I
Yeah.
learned. It took me 50 years to learn that. But you allow yourself some room to gather your thoughts and to really give the response that's going to be best for yourself and for that other person, because you don't want to say something that you're going to regret in the future, right? Sometimes we're angry, or we're upset, or we're just feeling so low that things just come out of our mouth, and we're like, oh, why did I say that? So when you allow yourself that room to grow and to say, okay, I'm in control of the situation, I can choose how I want to respond. I have a gift from God of voice, right? And to speak your mind. Use it for the good. Use it to be constructive instead of destructive.
Yeah. And you know, I was thinking when you were talking, like, we're not islands. As much as we like to, like, some of the most, you know, it's easy for me to say this, but when we're really struggling, we don't want to be around anyone.
No,
let's be honest. When we're really struggling, and that's when you have your family, you have your positive.
You don't want to talk to anybody.
You don't want to talk to anyone. And the one thing that I you know, when listening to you was, you know, when it comes to, we don't. It's also when we have our self-care, when we provide ourselves room to say, I'm not feeling good today. I need a little moment for myself. Then I could be better for the people around me when I am better, you know, because the end of the day, I learned, especially, you know, doing the podcast, my new line of work that I'm doing, is that it's very humbling how little I can do. I'll say it. The most I do a lot of times is just listen. A lot of times I feel I've learned kind of different. You remember you say you're holistic, you see every part. I see that in the individuals I work with. I see in myself. I tell my wife all the time, I could never do the job I do without her. I just tell you right now.
It's a partnership.
It's a partner. I am, you know, it's emotionally exhausting, but it's emotionally rewarding at the same time. So there's this word. It's called Ubuntu. It's South African. It says, I find my worth in you and you find your worth in me. It's roughly translated, but it's wonderfully inclusive. I think of it, as much as I don't, this is an outreach. There's this one book, Daniel in the Bible. I always kind of look at is Daniel 7, I believe, his prayer, you know, his prayer and he always includes himself, even though he had nothing to do with what happened with Babylon. And what I usually tell you, Rick, even though I don't really proselytize, is I read Ecclesiastes, and then I read Job, and then I read Daniel, because it's very interesting for me, because Ecclesiastes tells us what we don't want to hear about the state of the world. Job tells us what we tend to do with when we see other people struggling. We try to, because it will affect us, because it's driven by fear. But then Daniel sets the example of all inclusive. All of us are in this together. And why I mention this to everyone listening is that whether you're faith-based or not, recovery is inclusive. All of us just want to be better. We want to be happy. When we think about our lives, when we're kids, when we're growing up, we don't want all these pains. We don't want all these health issues. We don't want any of this. And with all that said, it's easy to say, invest in your overall health. Those words are wonderful, but when you don't take time for yourself and say, I want to be better, I want to feel better. But we don't hold on to animosity or bitterness towards our brothers or sisters, and understand that not everyone will understand what you're going through. But you know, that's what faith, at least my faith, and I believe your faith, is so grounded. It doesn't change. You know, it's the one anchor that I could hold on to, because everything in my life keeps changing. You know, being married and everything else, but it is wonderful. So I want to ask you, despite you know, it's easy to say invest in overall health. I believe you mentioned a lot. Is there anything else you want to say when the idea of investing over a health?
You know, when you were speaking, about your job and about listening to other people, I think you hit the nail on the head, because part of your recovery on a personal level is including others people. And when you are active listening, you are learning from them, and you are seeing almost a reflection of yourself. And when they're going through a situation, how did they handle it? Would I handle it the same way? What would I do differently? So you're kind of able to mirror yourself in other people's situations and say, what can I learn from their situation so I won't make that mistake? Or I like what they did, and maybe I can incorporate that into my life so that I can grow and be a better person. So I think when you hit that point, I think that really resonated with me, that we're not an island to ourselves. We need other people to help us in the recovery process, because sometimes it's overwhelming. Even though we've overcome so much, we can easily want to fall back into maybe an old habit or an old lifestyle. So for me personally, when I think of the word recovery, it means to me no more hospitals, no more chemotherapy, no more pain, no more needle injections, no more hair loss, right? It just means that I was given a second chance at life, Robert. And I guess I want to throw out maybe a question to all the listeners, is that what are we doing with that second chance of life that God has given us? Are we going to go right back into our old lifestyle and just repeat it again? Why should we, if we've been given a new opportunity, right? It's like they've cleaned the slate, the slate clean, and you're getting a brand new piece of paper. What are you going to write in the next chapter of your life? You have the opportunity to write it however you want, because it is your new opportunity to grow. So I asked you, it's one thing, like when I was in the hospital, I felt so sick and so weak, and I felt like I wasn't alive. I was just existing, right? I was just getting from 1 hour to the next, from one IV to the next. I was just laying there. But then once I got out of the hospital and I started eating right and getting proper nutrition in my body by juicing and by eating raw fruits and vegetables, I became literally alive in every sense of the word. So what are we doing with our aliveness? Like, I put that in quotations, right? Because when we're alive, we're open to all of our senses. We're feeling what people are saying around us. We're feeling the breeze that comes, I have a little bit of hair left, but the breeze that goes through our hair. We're feeling the wind. We're feeling the sunshine, the warmth. I love to just walk by the beach. I think I've said this before, and just take off my shoes and feel the water hit my feet. I just feel so alive, and like the power of the waves, and it just invigorates me. And I look at the expanse of the sky and I think, wow, I am such a minute speck in this universe, yet God loves me and God cares for me as if I was the only thing on this earth, so it just changes your whole perspective. I wanted to add that in my personal journey, that I wanted to make a difference. And that's part of my growth and recovery, that I didn't only think about myself, that I wanted to be healthy and strong and the best me that I can be, but I wanted to overflow into others and to help others to see that they too. So I want to be gentle and I want to be kind with my words. I want to build other people up. I want to motivate them. I want to be caring. I want to not be so self-centered and focus on myself, but I want to be others-centered, so that we can grow together. And I think the world will be a better place if we do that. And being a patient, as a caregiver, I was always taking care of the patient. But when I became the patient, I saw the other end of it, and I felt so helpless, so almost lifeless, like I had no voice, no ability to do anything outside of that hospital room, outside of the confines of where they had me. I feel so constricted. So I vowed to myself that once I get out of the hospital, I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to bring others along with me, including you, Robert. Because when I see you, I just want to give you the biggest bear hug, because I know that you share my passion for life,
Yeah.
and you're a happy person, and now that you're married, I love your wife just as equally. Like I've embraced her as part of the unit,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we just keep widening the circle,
Mhm.
the circle of love, the circle of benevolence, the
Mhm.
circle of just making everybody happy.
Yeah, and when I was, thinking while you were talking, I was just reminded of my journey and just thinking of, like you said, my recovery became my healing. Me reaching out, but this podcast, it's been several years, and one thing, it's not about me. This
Good.
podcast for me has really been about talking with anyone and everyone about subjects, just keeping the conversation going, the dialogue of hope, inspiring recovery from all walks of life, and understanding that we're human. And this stuff is hard. Those who are listening, it is hard, but at the same time, when you look at your life and you say, I want, it was funny, I just remember one I wanted to say also was, I talk to people, I'm like, do you have a hobby? And they're like, I don't have time for a hobby. I have all the things I have to do. I'm like, I already said, no, you got to make time for a hobby. The thing is, every day can't be a crisis situation.
That's right.
There has to be, there has to be joy. I know this also. I spoke to another person on the podcast who's in the middle of cancer right now. He's struggling. He's going, and he said to me that he found out he had to go through chemo again and all that stuff, and they said the family has said, okay, family meeting, come on. He's like, what? He's like, now he's like, okay, they vote, you're gonna do it, and all this stuff, and he's like, wait a minute. But he said to me, it was funny, was that if I was by myself, if I just retreated to myself, this will be so much, I wouldn't want to continue, but
Right.
it's just the positive, the people surrounding you, whether you have maybe disagreements, or maybe you lost track or lost contact. I encourage you to reconnect as the best you can, or because those people in your life, we're not islands, we need each other.
That's
I
right.
need Rick, I need and then the thing is,
Amen.
a lot of times, in the health field, there's not enough resources. A lot of times,
That's
there's
right.
not enough people. There's this one word in Hindi, it says "jugat." I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it says ensure that things happen even with the minimal resources.
Mm-hmm.
And as we wrap up, there's two more questions. One's your final thoughts. What have you
Okay.
seen work in your experience when resources are limited in your own journey or in others?
Yeah, I don't think that people need to focus so much on the resources. Like you need to have
Yeah.
certain objects in order to
Yeah.
achieve your goals. I think just the simple things in life, like getting outside in the fresh air, that's just very motivating in and of itself.
Mhm.
To be out in the sunshine is invigorating.
Mhm.
And like I like to walk my dog,
Mhm.
just connect with my pet. I feel
Mhm.
happy. I meet other people down the neighborhood. I like to ride my bike. It makes me
Mhm.
feel energized. Or I go kayaking, and I
Mhm.
feel the water around me. I stick my hand in the water, and the waves come. When a boat comes by, it kind of pushes me over, and
Yeah.
I'm scared of falling over. But these are just simple things that you can do. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'd have to buy a yacht, or
Yeah.
I have to be
Yeah.
rich in order to live my life to the fullest. But if you don't have the resources, you can just walk by the shore, or you can just get a little inexpensive kayak or a canoe, and you can still have the same effect of the people on the yacht without the expense. So you don't have to spend a lot of money or feel like you have to go to seminars or to buy all these books to read, because it's kind of overwhelming, but just do it in little steps. I find that I read a book that interests me, and I highlight the points that stand out to me, and I try to focus on those particular points. Or I listen to a particular song, and maybe one verse of the song speaks to my heart, and I'll just keep singing that phrase over and over again. They have this little thing on YouTube now that you can do like an hour-long version of the song, and it just keeps playing over and over again. And my wife says, "Rick, I've heard that song so many times already." I said, "It's okay, but it's speaking to me." I like it. and it inspires me. And then maybe
Mm.
after a week I get sick of it, but at least for that week it encouraged me.
Yeah. And the thing is, I also, me and my, you heard some words. These are untranslatable words like Ubuntu and all this stuff.
Yeah,
It's hard to translate these words in other languages. But what I want to say is, invest in yourself.
that's right.
A lot of times, we think of the word invest. We think of the word in resources. We think of those words as tangible, physical objects. Resources can just be
Calling a friend.
calling a friend.
That's right.
It could be, you know what? I can't. I want to go for a walk. It's I can't walk very far, but I'm gonna try today a little bit longer. I'm gonna wake up today. You think about the first quote. Helen Keller said, it's a lot of times we focus on the negative. Remember we mentioned that. Although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of overcoming of it. And the thing is, she's one who probably had the hardest time, if she thought, to communicate the world, but she still does to this day. It's amazing what we can do. A lot of times, the shoulds, what we should be able to do, what we can't do, and when we stuck there, I feel when we look at our lives and we put value to who we are,
That's right.
and it's not easy, but at the same time, you gotta ask yourself, why do you do what you do? And I feel a lot of times it's a lot more simpler. It goes to the derivative. If anyone who remember math class, go to the simplest reason you're where you're at, why you're struggling.
That's right.
A lot of times I find out I just felt unheard. I feel like no one's around. I don't feel appreciated. Simple words.
Mhm.
And then look at what you would like to do and put boundaries. But growing in recovery, the point is it's led by you, each one of you. And I encourage
You have the power to change things.
yeah. And like Alice Walker says as we close, she says, let me just find it real quick.
No problem.
Yeah, right here. She says, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any.
Okay.
There's a lot of fear. I'm not going to lie. A lot of uncertainty, but you don't have to stay there. Every day can't be a crisis situation. Have a hobby. Enjoy, grow, live life, just like Rick says. That's why I enjoy having you back, Rick.
Oh,
And I just
welcome.
wanted to say thank you for joining us, discussing and sharing your insight. It's always wonderful to get all. I like to return guests. It means that I'm doing something right. But at the same time, it's a community that we are standing together to continue to discuss things that most people may not want to. These things
We're literally helping each other along life's journey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I almost knocked the phone over.
No,
But
okay.
I just wanted to say one last thing in closing,
Go ahead.
if I may,
Go
is that I wanted to encourage the people listening that recovery is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And I want you to, when you make strides, even though they're little ones, pat yourself on the back and know that you're doing the right thing. And you may not be where you want to be in a week or in a month or even 3 months, but each of those steps that you take, it is in the right direction.
Yeah.
So know that eventually you'll be at your goal. And for different people, it's going to be different goals, right? But I want you to know that in building your new life and building the foundational blocks of what you want to achieve, make sure that they're solid foundations and that you're building securely on the next one. Otherwise, they're going to crumble down. You know? So I want to give you hope and know that your aspirations are founded in your thoughts, and what you think is what you become. So if you think positive thoughts, you'll become a positive person. So get away from those negativity, from the negative people, and just try to focus your life in a new direction. And that is the recovery in itself, is just moving. I always tell myself, it's okay to look back and see where I've come from. It's okay to look back every once in a while, like in the rear view mirror. But I don't want you to dwell on that. Because it could suck you back in, right?
Yeah.
But I want you to just always move forward in faith. Every once in a while, glance back and say, oh, yeah. And it's kind of encouraging because I've come this far, but always looking forward to know this is where I'm headed, to this new destination. And if you look forward, you won't be disappointed.
Invest in yourself,
Amen.
you know. And I just always appreciate you coming in, Rick. Growing in recovery, wrapping up this month. And I want to say again, you can always stay updated with Revive Ministries through various platforms. Every month, we're having a new theme. We are also incorporating Music Monday, which we have songs because I know everyone has. Sometimes they want to express. Maybe they don't have the words, but one of the most wonderful things that, like you expressed before, is music. Music is a great way to express and communicate how we are feeling.
It's the universal language.
It is, and I just
And,
want
and,
to
and,
say
and it sounds like a lot of fun too.
it is, and it's just a slow. And for me, it's really just we're a community. I'm not saying I'm on this journey just like Rick is of recovery, and it's a wonderful journey. I invite each one of you to, consider taking those little baby steps, as he said. And I just want to say, each week on Thursday we have new episodes. I encourage, if you want to be a guest, to just email at info@reviveministriesfl.com. Until next time, this is goodbye from Revive Ministry Podcast. Leaving his last quote. It's from Jennifer Brown. She says, "Just like there's always time for pain, there's always time for healing."